The success of Batman Arkham Asylum back in 2009 was, to say the least, pretty unexpected. For decades, the Batman franchise had been dragged through the mud by greedy game publishers desperate to milk the Caped Crusader's success as much as possible. So, when a game came out that blew just about everyone's expectations out the water, when the unknown studio that is Rocksteady released Batman Simulator 2009, it's safe to say everyone was craving for more. So when a sequel was announced barely 1 year later, the excitement and hype was mixed in with some skepticism. Could Rocksteady capture that same lightning in a bottle twice? Could they really pull off an even better sequel in such a short span of time? Well, yes. Yes, they could. Before we jump into the video, I just want to say that it would really help me out if you could hit like, and if you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe and turn post notifications on. And with that being said, let's jump into Batman Arkham City. Like I said, the announcement and release of a sequel to Arkham Asylum by 2011 seemed in many minds completely impossible. But the project was by no means built from scratch, and it was by no means rushed. The conception of Arkham City came through the end stages of Asylum's development in 2009, with Rocksteady clearly confident in what they'd created. The game was released on October 18th, 2011, and it was immediately clear to critics and audiences alike that this was something special. But before it could fully get its wheels spinning, Arkham City ran into a little bit of controversy. With the idea of DLC rapidly growing back in 2011, Rocksteady made the questionable decision to create numerous pre-order bonuses and various exclusive sections. A decision that led to the Catwoman parts of the game, which act as vital points both in adding to the main story and providing a unique gameplay style, to essentially be cut. But regardless of this major part of the game being behind a paywall, it by no means was enough to detract anyone from the game on release. Being nearly universally praised on release, City received multiple Game of the Year awards, as well as becoming one of the fastest selling games of all time, more than doubling the first week sales of its predecessor. So it'd probably be a bit of an understatement to say that this game was loved. But why was it so adored on release? Well, the further perfected gameplay of Arkham Asylum did a lot, but the true core of what makes this game so great, what makes it a masterpiece, is its brilliance in storytelling, being one of the best Batman stories ever told outside of comics. Arkham City opens on a shot of a painting, an image that'll come back around by the end of the game. This excellent visual foreshadowing is followed by our introduction to Catwoman, whose plan is to steal some mysterious Pulp Fiction-like suitcase from Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, and this immediately signals one of my favourite parts of Arkham City: the sheer abundance of villains. Batman's rogues gallery is probably the best in all of fiction, and it's in its full glory in the Arkham series. Whilst Asylum brought in seemingly more than enough, City ramps it up a notch, bringing back the likes of Bane, Poison Ivy and the Joker, but throwing on top of it the Mad Hatter, Ra's al Ghul, the Penguin, Solomon Grundy, Mr. Freeze, Deadshot, Black Mask. It even hints to Hush. It's honestly ridiculous how much content this game is packed with, and it all stems from near perfect depictions of what feels like just about all of Batman's villain list. Following this prologue, we get our first sight of this universe's Bruce Wayne, as we see the billionaire playboy getting involved in politics, attempting to shut down newly coronated Mayor Quincy Sharp's creation of Arkham City, a replacement of both Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Prison, designed to reduce the risk of breakout. At least, that's what it seems on the surface. Of course, I probably don't need to explain why no city would do this ever, but considering the general reputation of Gotham authorities, it's a plot point that the player just has to kind of accept. After his press conference is interrupted by Tiger Guards, we're introduced to the driving villain of the game, Professor Hugo Strange, a man set on gaining power no matter the cost, who's been put in charge of Arkham City. We quickly learn that Strange is using his private army and the walls of Arkham City to construct the mysterious Protocol 10, and it's also revealed that he knows the true identity of Batman. Whilst this opening sequence is near iconic, the attempted terrifying reveal that Strange knows who Batman is becomes somewhat inconsequential, at least in this game, never really having any impact on the story or on Bruce's character, and essentially fizzling out as any kind of story point. So from here, Bruce is thrown straight into the city, with his first true opponent being the Penguin. Straight off the bat, we're thrown into combat, and even after the original free flow system was perfect, Rocksteady somehow made it better. City's combat follows the exact same mechanics as its predecessor, but the system, beyond all belief, is even more fluid, even more precise, and even more fun. Hundreds, if not thousands, of new combat animations are added, for not only Batman but Catwoman, Robin, and Nightwing, and the increased variety of weapons and tactics makes it one of the best, if not the best, fighting system in all of gaming. Rocksteady also show from the offset no intention of holding the player's hand, as they throw you right back into the spot you left off from in Asylum, with all the abilities and gadgets picked up in Asylum carrying over to City, truly making it feel like a continuation as opposed to a completely separated sequel. This continuation element is carried over to the second, perhaps more important part of City's story, that with the Joker. After suiting up, saving Catwoman and tracking down Harley Quinn, Bruce finds the Joker decrepit, ill, dying from a disease caused by his Titan-fueled rampage a year earlier. It turns out the Joker's been transferring his diseased blood into not only Gotham's hospitals, but also into Bruce himself, creating a double race against time, both to stop Protocol 10 and to save himself and the city from Joker's disease. This plan by the Joker to infect Batman in the city, on the surface seems again like a simple one, but it's the thematic elements of Batman, infected, diseased by the Joker, that truly drives the most interesting conflict in this game. Batman, the damaged symbol of purity, truth, and justice, is poisoned by the man that acts as his moral antithesis. Arkham City takes much of its symbolic and thematic devices from tales like The Killing Joke, truly driving home the idea that Batman and the Joker are the balancing forces of Gotham, the yin and yang, the order and chaos. One cannot exist without the other, similar to the likes of Harry Potter and Voldemort, for example. Each have a part of themselves within the other, and while one is perceived as good and the other evil, they both provide each other with purpose, with justification for their actions. As Ra's al Ghul later goes on to question, the Joker may not even exist without Bruce's journey to become the Batman. It brings into question the true futility of Batman, as his one rule prevents him from ever truly ending this fight. A trait of the Dark Knight that is the key as to why his stories, his conflicts, and his character act as the most interesting and engaging of all superheroes, maybe of all characters. And so Batman begins his one-night journey to stop both Joker and Strange, and along the way we encounter some of the best world building in all of gaming, whether it be the incredibly detailed world, filled to the brim with various pieces of Batman lore, or whether it's the side missions, delving deeper into each of his villains individually as we get a glimpse into how they provide conflict for him. Although the first main gameplay section, involving the saving of Mr. Freeze from the Penguin, is one that doesn't provide much in the way of incredible storytelling, it does allow for the player to truly get a chance to explore the city, having to go all over the map to take out various plot devices, and although some of this content could be called filler, I think this section provides some quality time to breathe after the intensely quick-paced opening. And so, Batman saves Mr. Freeze, after a minor scuffle with the invincible Solomon Grundy. After Batman makes his way back to Freeze, we find out that we need a very specific enzyme to create a cure for Batman's newfound disease. An enzyme that just so happens to have been bonded to Ra's al Ghul for centuries. Bruce begins to make his way through the city, through the sewers, to reach the League of Assassins hideout, the remains of what was Wonder City. It's here that we begin to see a weakness in Bruce. We begin to see his mask of impenetrability slip, and we see him begin to fade in and out of consciousness due to the toxins in his blood, and this loss of life is placed at the perfect point. Wonder City in this universe is an old steampunk style city, long since abandoned after the Lazarus the city sustained itself with began corrupting and destroying the people from within. The idea of invincibility is one that's present throughout the game, but it's Wonder City that truly embodies the darkness and the sinister elements of immortality, elements we find Ra's al Ghul has come to meet. It's here that Bruce completely breaks down. He sees a massive shining light. He sees his parents beckoning for him to join them. Should he just give up? His fight to stop the evils of Gotham has time and time again shown itself to be futile. As he says later, the Joker will just continue to break out and do it again. Although of course no one really expects Bruce to die here, it does bring into question whether his dedication, whether the symbol of Batman is one still worth maintaining. But Bruce fights on. He gets up and makes it to Talia, and after lying his way into doing the demon trials, gets a small dose of demon's blood that'll keep him alive for at least a few hours. This is followed by one of the better boss sequences of the game, and that's saying something because they went through a major upgrade from the repetitiveness of Asylum. Batman and the player make their way through an illusional world, hearing the stories and motives of Ra's, and after completing the trials, Bruce comes truly face to face with Ra's. But once again, Batman's most important principle is brought in. His one rule. The final demon trial, of course, is to take a life. But Batman, the boy who saw his parents shot dead in an alleyway, refuses. I may get some comments of disagreement here, but when it comes to Batman, one of the most significant factors in making him such a great character is this rule. And this game is again a prime example, as his entire conflict here stems from the refusal to take a life. And so, feeling dishonored, Ra's reincarnates his illusion world, and the player takes him down in a truly epic boss fight, climaxing in Batman giving Ra's one last chance to redeem himself. Heading back to Mr. Freeze though, we get truly the best boss fight in this game, as Freeze's obsessions for his kidnapped wife blinds his sense of urgency. Bruce refuses to go save Nora, seemingly finished running around doing errands, and so we get one of the most fear-filled encounters in all of gaming. If anyone wanted to bring in the stereotypical "it makes you feel like Batman" line, now would be the time to do it, as this stealth-based fight against Freeze truly forces the player to use your head the same way Bruce would. Placed in a similar situation as most stealth encounters, Freeze shows his intellectual balance with Batman, as after each tactic the player uses to take him down, he learns, adapting either himself or the environment so that it can't be used against him again. For any player who is just using vertical takedowns in every stealth segment, this throws a spanner in the works, as the player has to use every single technique and gadget at Batman's disposal to stand any chance at getting out of that room alive. The fight really does lean in on the factor of Batman actually just being a mortal man, adding an extra element of fear into what on its own is a great duel. But the reward for said fight is kind of bittersweet. During Freeze's minor tantrum, Harley Quinn snuck into the police department and stole the last of the cure. So, this sets the player back on another fetch quest to find said cure. Bruce makes his way back to the steel mill, and after dealing with some thugs along the way, he finally fights the Joker. However, the Joker has outplanned him, dropping the roof on his head and finally having the upper hand on the Caped Crusader. That is, until Talia comes to the rescue, offering Joker the keys to immortality in return for the Bat's life. Using a tracking chip, she's able to lure Joker away from Batman, in concept, saving both of their lives. And then we cut to Catwoman, a fairly jarring cut after the high intensity sequence just moments before. This moment brings us the most surprising moment of the game, as Selina takes back her stolen contraband before hearing about Batman's situation, stuck under mountains of rubble. Here we get what seems like a genuine choice. The player can either return to the city, save Batman and stop Protocol 10, or keep the suitcases and leave Batman to his doom. Since everyone who plays video games is a complete nihilist, we all choose to exit Arkham City just to see what happens. And to the shock of everyone, the credits start rolling. Was this an actual option, an actual way to end the game? Well, despite the possibility of that being a real option being pretty cool, it turns out to be a faux choice, as the credits rewind and the game forces you into the right choice, a choice that is very typically Catwoman. Selina makes her way to save the Dark Knight, and while this moment is cool and all, this interweaving of the Catwoman section is a real detriment to the story pacing wise, as you jump from an intense boss battle on the verge of death, with Protocol 10 about to rain down, to just another average Catwoman stealth segment. That being said though, this pacing issue is a fairly minor one, and after the player gets past it, we get surprisingly a far more interesting choice. Or at least, Bruce does. Here, for the first time in the whole game, we see Bruce fail in his choices, with his judgment clouded by his love for Talia. But despite pushing Robin away, pushing away any idea of anyone helping him, it ends up being Alfred and Oracle who effectively save the inmates of Arkham City. It turns out Protocol 10 is the destruction of Arkham City, and everyone inside it. After Professor Strange provided the inmates with guns and all the other equipment they'd need to escape, he was able to convince his board of directors to activate Protocol 10. And so, Batman needs to make his way to the top of Wonder Tower to shut down this mass extermination, at least before he can save his girlfriend. To be perfectly honest, gameplay wise, this is a fairly disappointing climax, with the ascension of Wonder Tower ending up just feeling like any old stealth encounter. However, after you reach Strange, we get an amazing cutscene, and an even better twist.
With powerful friends, Batman. This is just the beginning. You cannot stop me. Soon I will command forces beyond your comprehension. I have achieved what the great Batman could never do. Gotham will forever thank Hugo Strange!
Your part in this is over, Professor Strange.
Why? I did everything you wanted.
Indeed. You clearly demonstrated that Batman is better than you. Let him die, Detective.
He was your puppet, Raish. Why?
Yes, it turns out that Ra's al Ghul is the true mastermind behind Arkham City, controlling this maniacal plan from his chambers below. Ra's plan to finally eliminate the Scourge of Gotham through manipulating Strange with the invincibility of the Lazarus Pit is a shocker, but it's what happens next that is the slight revival of hope for Gotham, as Strange activates Protocol 11, blowing up the tower and with it, putting an end to Ra's al Ghul in a last-ditch attempt to redeem himself. But with that out the way, we need to save the slightly underdeveloped love interest. And here we get an even better twist.
Talia, no!
Problem solved.
You didn't need to.
Why? You would never do it. You left me no choice.
There's always a choice.
I had to save you. Harley Quinn stole it for him. I took it back. It's over.
Surprise!
Mr. J, you look perfect.
Ring, ring! So how do you keep a secret from the world's greatest detective? Well, do you know? You stick it right in front of him, right under his long, pointy nose, and wait.
Joker wants you to think he's sick. Then wham! Gotcha!
You fell for the old fake Joker gag, Batman!
Talia!
I'm sorry, beloved.
Now, to me, this twist is a pretty good one, being effectively foreshadowed but not completely obvious. But that being said, I'm not the best detective, as anyone who's ever played Sherlock with me will know. So maybe the double Joker twist is one that's screaming at you from the offset. But personally, this twist always gives me goosebumps, partially out of nostalgia, but also due to it just being a quality payoff to Joker's entire story. This defining moment of the game is slightly soured though, by the fact that the final boss fight revives the repetitive and dull nature of Asylum, but this last boss fight by no means ruins what comes next. Batman, holding the only thing that can save the Joker, hesitates. He hears that maniacal laugh, describing all the terrible things that he's let happen over the night. His girlfriend dead in his arms, countless dead, a city on the brink of death itself. Is it really worth it? Is it worth it to keep this futile game of cat and mouse running forever, with one of these two men seemingly destined to kill each other? Well, before Bruce can even decide, the Clown Prince of Crime cuts off any chances of his survival.
No!
I'm a person who thinks that a villain's death should always come as a result of their own villainy. I'm old school that way. I'm not a big fan of the Man of Steel neck snap or of Captain America shooting his way through hordes of men. And so when I see the Joker lying on the ground on the verge of death, it doesn't make me feel cheated. It doesn't make this world feel any less full or any less immersive. And that is purely because of the words that Bruce says next.
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
You know, that actually is pretty funny.
This moment, this death, this beautiful tragedy is executed to perfection, from the foreshadowing laid in the opening shot of the game to the heartbreaking score that accompanies it. The Joker is dead, the good guys won, they saved the day, but it's bittersweet. Was it worth it? All that death, all that destruction? Would any of it even happened if Bruce never put on that cowl in the first place? All questions I'm sure Bruce Wayne would be pondering over in this moment, as he slowly carries his antithesis, his arch nemesis, his counterbalance's body out of the city of crime and disaster. Arkham City's story is a perfect example of something you know is brilliant, but you can't always pinpoint why. And I think that factor is something essential to a great Batman story. There's always a mystical element of the Caped Crusader, an element reminiscent of ancient mythology. Its story of course has its down points, and its great moments, but the Arkham series, and especially Arkham City, is a game not built on mere moments. These games are built on an understanding of character and an understanding of this world. Gotham, Bruce Wayne, Batman, the Joker, they are all somewhat one in the same, going round in the same circle of insanity and crime, with seemingly no end in sight. This game more than any questions the futility of the Dark Knight, whether his fight will continue forever. But it turns out to be the death of his biggest foe that reminds him why he fights, why he needs to fight. Because if he stops the fight, then the Joker dies. If he stops the fight, then Batman dies. If he stops the fight, then his city, his people, his parents collapse under the disease of crime and despair. The moment Batman stops being Batman, stops being a symbol, that is the moment that Gotham dies. To put it simply, Batman Arkham City took everything that made Asylum so loved, so adored, and improved on it exponentially. Whether it be incorporating countless villains, adding some great side content, ramping up the Riddler challenges by 1000%, or just delving deeper into the lore and psyche of the Dark Knight. It acted as a masterpiece of a sequel in every regard. Instead of massively changing, it simply took the great gameplay of its predecessor and upgraded, making the player feel like they were picking up where they left off. That perfection of the already great gameplay, mixed with a massively expanded and incredibly detailed world, filled to the brim with an intense variety of content that would make any completionist feel sick, all wrapped up with a story that pulls together aspects from countless iconic Batman stories, creates what I can only describe as a masterpiece. There's no other way around it. Arkham City is, in its simplest form, the perfect Batman game. It has its flaws, but it's a game that I wouldn't ever want to change. And in retrospect, 9 years later, it really is a miracle that this game even exists. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy, it'd really be appreciated if you could hit like, and if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on. Also, comment down below and tell me, is Arkham City your favourite Batman game, or is there another one that piques your interest? With all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Found the Scarab, and I'll see you in the next one.